You're very beautiful, man. I admire you physically. But, no homo.
You could choose one or the other. You can be race-obsessed or merit-obsessed. We as conservatives decide to be merit-obsessed, to build a country based on how hard you work and what you're able to deliver.
Okay,
I get what he's saying.
You're very beautiful, man. I admire you physically. But, no homo. I did have a question. Something I don't find very interesting about you, something I find kind of repulsive, is that I believe you said that the Civil Rights Act was bad and that we shouldn't have that.
Okay, well...
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't like you as much as Charlie, though.
First of all, what's your name?
Sorry. I don't want to be, like, filmed and stuff.
Too late.
I'm anonymous.
So if you guys don't know, Charlie Kirk likes to go to colleges and debate college students on more conservative or more liberal topics. And that's what he's doing now. He's debating a MAG student on radical racism. So this should be good. Let's get into it.
Number one, anonymous guy.
Okay. Well, hello. Nice to meet you, anonymous guy.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, too.
Yeah, I believe in part of the essence of the Civil Rights Act went way too far, way too wide.
Oh, how did it go too far?
Well, for example, it created an entire civil rights Leviathan that gave us affirmative action.
Civil rights Leviathan? What do you mean?
Yeah, so if you can let me finish three words in.
Sorry.
It allowed the Department of Justice to go after people that have different skin color, a.k.a. white people, and prevent them from getting jobs in college admissions.
You have a job.
I'm sorry?
You have a job.
No, you're right, I do. Right, but just until Trump came around, until the Supreme Court decision, thanks to the Civil Rights Act, if you have white skin color, it's much harder to get into a college than if someone has black skin color. Much harder. You have to get higher test scores. It's a much harder pool, largely thanks to the precedent set by the Civil Rights Act. Not to mention all the trans stuff, and they use the Civil Rights Act to justify it.
Okay, I think I see where you're coming from. So you think that it's harder for white people because black people they could have lower tech scores again?
It's not what I think. It's the fact.
That's what you're saying. Okay. All right. Well, I guess what I would.
So if you guys don't know what he's referring to racial quotas that colleges have, basically saying that we need to have a certain percentage of black students, white students, Hispanic students, Asian students, so on and so forth. That's what he's referring to. He's saying the cause of that is the Civil Rights Act. To begin with that, I don't think the Civil Rights Act itself caused racism, because the Civil Rights Act basically said you cannot discriminate based off of race. I think people's misinterpretation of the Civil Rights Act itself is what caused a lot of social and racial issues. Meaning that the Civil Rights Act doesn't say that black students or black people get preferential treatment. It doesn't say that. The problem is people are using the Civil Rights Act to, in some instances, give preferential treatment based off of skin color. But it is not exactly the Civil Rights Act, if that makes sense. Let's continue.
I think perhaps you're familiar with the term equity, right? Where different people have different circumstances.
It's
which
Marxism. I reject.
Okay. Well, whether you reject it or not, I think it's a prescient concept in this argument. Because what you have to understand is that when for example, you're born in like a black neighborhood, you're born in like O Block or something, like a very, like a, oh, you don't know what O Block is? Oh, well, if you're born there, if you're born in a very poor area like that, with like very low economic opportunity, very, very poor schools or very low ratings, where the average test score is much lower, when you're in that environment, you have the whole system up against you, right? So when you say in that kind of circumstance, when you're facing the whole, I guess, Leviathan of systemic racism, would you say that? Sorry, let me just finish it. When you say it's fair to, for example, lower the standard because knowing that their circumstances were like that, perhaps based on what they had, what was presented to them, they had the correct amount of merit to get into a school.
Okay, so are you a student here? I'm guessing you are.
Oh, yeah, I'm a student here.
Are you a pretty good student?
Oh, yeah, I would say I'm a good student. I have a pretty high GPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give your GPA to her because she's a woman of color, please?
Oh, well, you want me to give you a... Well, I mean, I can.
Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, sure.
You'd cool with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. Wait, you mean
I want you...
Like tell her or like give it to her?
By force.
Like we're swapping it.
Let me tell you what I'm going to do. By force, white man.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to take your GPA. I'm going to give it to a woman of color.
Okay.
You're cool with that?
I mean, yeah, I can just work back up. Like,
there's no working back up.
I can pull myself up by my bootstraps.
No, there's no working back up.
What do you mean you can't work back up? That's the whole point of conservatism, isn't it?
I'm going to keep on taking it from you because that's equity. And you're cool with that.
What?
'Cause
But that's not
this is equity in practice.
Equity isn't taking. Equity is giving, applying the equal standard.
If you give, how do you get? You must take, and then you give.
Wait, what do you mean?
That which is given must first be taken.
Well, what's being taken?
Well, in this case, grades from you to grades
But
to her.
no one's taking my grades though. That's not what affirmative
it's
action
called,
is.
well, hold on a
No one
second.
takes your grades.
Hold on a second. If you
Yeah,
only have
yeah,
so many,
oh.
you only have so many positions at University of South Florida to come in, right? There's a set number. Let's say it's 20,000 people, okay? And we're gonna say we're gonna lower the test standards so that somebody that's a woman of color can come in, and therefore it's harder for you. So it's a higher bar for you, lower bar for them. Definitionally, that's a redistribution of test scores to somebody else, just by the definition. And you're okay with that?
Well, I guess I would ask then, if we were to do what you're doing, I guess that's what's happening under Trump, right?
Well, no, it's actually been happening the last 40 years.
Okay, actually, yeah, whatever. Okay, so when you say that, if you do that, then, well, black people aren't going to get into school, and then they won't be able to uplift themselves, they won't be able to have prosperous families, they won't be able to, equalize the economic...
That's a harmful rhetoric. If you don't lower the bar, black people will still be able to get into schools. What he just said was kind of racist. You don't have to lower the standard for black people for us to get into schools. And I'm not saying that out of the society. I'm saying that for myself. I got pretty high test scores. I got a full ride to college when I was going to college. I'm a graduate student right now. I have a full ride to grad school studying engineering. I've experienced this. I know for a fact you don't have to lower the bar. And just to look at my personal life, this is not something that happened because I was black. This college I went to is historically black, meaning that being black would not benefit me going here. They would, if anything, being white would have benefited me going to a historically black college because you would be the minority at the school. So I end up getting a full ride to study engineering. You don't have to lower the standard. However, I would say I think Charlie Kirk has a fundamental misunderstanding on how colleges work. However, his point is still semi-accurate. And here's the thing. When you have a college, the way they accept students is it's not solely based off of test scores and grades. Yes, that is a factor, but the way colleges in reality accept you is that they have a baseline on what test score you should have, and they have a baseline on what GPA you should have based off of the program that you're applying for. I would say though, if you have a baseline and someone is higher above that baseline, that gives you extra points, but it's not all the points. So the way he's interpreting this is that he's saying that high test scores and high GPA should get you into the school point blank period. In theory, it sounds good, but in reality, it doesn't work that way because if you go to somewhere like Harvard, everyone who applies will have the baseline test score. So, and everyone who applies and that they're really considering will have the baseline GPA. So you kind of have to look at other factors. You can't just look at GPA and test scores. Yes, theoretically, you could look at who has the highest test scores and who has the highest GPA, but that doesn't always work out because if you do that, that'll remove other factors that school look at, such as where are you from? Are you a good fit for your specific program? So in theory, yes, you can look at the highest test scores and highest GPA and just do a list down on who gets in. But in reality, there's just too many students who get these scores and grades. So it doesn't necessarily work like that, but I understand where he's coming from. Let's continue.
That is because you need to give him a little jump start. You know what? You have a car, right?
How is that? Well, no, now I know who you are.
No, it's good.
But no, how has that worked the last 40 years? We've had robust affirmative action.
No.
We've had hiring practices. Has it made Black America more successful?
I can answer that easily. It's because sorry. It's because sorry. What am I going for? Oh,
I don't know.
You're a funny guy. So what happened is, even after the Civil Rights Act, you know what I believe the term is massive resistance. It was a movement in after the Brown versus Board of Education in Virginia, where essentially the legislature, which was still white supremacist, which is still extremely racist, they decided that no, we're going to do everything that feasibly possible within our means to stop black people from going to white schools. You even see this in I believe it was the Little Rock Nine, right? Even after it was legalized at the state level, white supremacist mobs still mobilized to prevent it. So even if it de facto it's gone, de jure it still exists.
Let me ask you a very simple question.
Yeah.
A term you keep on throwing around.
Got you.
What is racism?
What is racism? Ooh, that's a very complicated question. But
no, it's not.
I mean, there's a simple answer, and then there's the highly theoretical answer.
Give me the simple.
The simple answer will essentially be because we have like different skin colors that he's treated a different way than me. He has like a different upbringing than me.
No. But what is
He's subjected to
racism in practice?
It's discrimination.
Racism is prejudice based on race. This is not a hard question. Racism is when you treat one race worse than another race based off the sole premise of them being white. So the reason why Charlie Kirk is so passionate about this is because over the past few years, there has been some level of unfair and unjust treatment based off of skin color. Whether or not the skin color is white, black, Asian, it doesn't matter. And it's pretty ironic because the Civil Rights Bill is ironically against racism based off of skin color, but people are kind of using it to justify, I guess, unjust treatment of some white students in colleges, which is why there was an entire affirmative action case that went to the Supreme Court. Here's the thing. Colleges, because this is a college issue, the way that they're referencing it. Colleges messed up. They should not use race to determine, or race necessarily to determine if you will be a good fit for this school. Unfortunately, the way colleges are set up, test scores and grades aren't good enough to determine if a student will be a best fit for a school. Especially the higher up school you go to. It's just not good enough, because at Harvard, Princeton, Yale, or high achieving schools like MIT, majority of the people who apply have good test scores and good grades. You'll run out of spots if you just do grades and test scores. So you kind of want to look at other factors, but that doesn't negate the fact schools need to stop prioritizing just race so much, because race determines like a lot, I guess, based off of family cultural values, but it's not everything. It's showing how you grew up or what instills you to be a good student. It's not everything. It's not even most of everything. But let's continue.
Based on the color of the skin.
Based on the color of the skin, yeah.
Got it. Thank you. So isn't it racist then to penalize white people to come into college or to get jobs based on the color of their skin?
Well, no.
Wouldn't that be racist? So you're arguing for a very racist policy, which is that we should actively discriminate against people based on the color of their skin, which is affirmative action and DEI in practice.
I just disagree with the premise that you can do like anti-white racism because
Wait, can you be racist against white people?
No, bro, I'm a cracker, bro. What the No, you can't be racist towards white. Bro, there's so many crackers here, bro. There's your clip, bro. There's your clip. Well, what are you gonna do political violence to me, bro? Like, why are you saying that to me? You're making me scared. Okay.
So let me tell you what we believe, because you tell us what you believe.
Okay.
Your worldview is indistinguishable from the KKK. That you want to organize the world based on skin color. We want to organize the world based on merit and character, based on how hard you work, what you bring to the table. I believe it's destructive and wrong to say that people are going to be organized or have their future set based on the color of their skin. I think it's tribalistic. I think it is divisive, and I think it hurts the excellence of a country. You asked a question, well, how are we going to help other communities? You know how you help other communities? Stop pandering to them and start treating them like individuals made in the image of God, not tribes to be organized for political purposes.
Okay, so do you think, like, when Trump is now he's president, now that racism is gone now because Trump is back and we're no longer pandering, right? Do you think that the conditions of black people, do you think O Block is going to become, like, a much nicer place? Do you think that these very downturned sort of black neighborhoods that have been sort of left behind, do you think they're going to become revitalized now? Is that what you think is going to happen?
Yeah, they'll do better for sure.
Do you think they're going to do better? Now that we've stopped helping them, they're going to do better.
Well, see, that's an interesting thing.
Because that seems like contradictory to me, just on basic logic.
Well, actually, black Americans under Donald Trump in the first term saw the greatest economic renaissance that they saw since the 1950s.
You don't think that's due to
Highest wage
Obama,
increases, lowest unemployment, revitalization, amazing investment in their communities, opportunity zones.
But that's when we had affirmative action, so wouldn't that be bad?
Well, again, we actually got rid of affirmative action now.
But
it's going to do
that
it
was
better.
now, but I'm talking about before.
Those are unrelated things, though, just to be perfectly clear.
They don't seem unrelated to me.
Well, affirmative action
policies addressing racism. They seem
affirmative
really
action is, again,
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you are. That's
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Affirmative action is largely federal government hiring practices and the adjacent institutions. I think that all communities will do even better when
Affirmative action, he said, is largely federal government hiring practices. That was kind of correct, because the government did have, or at least the executive branch, because when we say government, this is executive branch, because there's 3 branches. So it's judicial, legislative, executive. They had a policy that said there had to be some level of making sure that racial discrimination wasn't happening. They had initiatives in the place to have diversity. But I would say affirmative action, honestly, is a lot of colleges, because when you look at who uses affirmative action the most, the executive branch, yeah, you can say that, but there's only 2 million total executive branch employees. And honestly, the majority of executive branch employees aren't even minority. They're veterans. So it's like 40% veterans. So yeah, you could say it's executive or federal, but in reality, it's not even that many to go around. It's really colleges who use affirmative action the most. I guess the debate question is, and there's a fundamental misunderstanding where people support it and people don't support it. So affirmative action was created to fight systemic racial barriers. If you guys don't know, or if you're new to America, America did have slavery, and there was a civil rights movement. And within the civil rights movement, affirmative action was birthed. The biggest difference is some people say, oh, we're past the civil rights movement, we shouldn't even need affirmative action anymore, everyone's on an equal playing field. And some people say, we're not on an equal playing field. We are already on an equal playing field. Affirmative action is outdated. So the question is right now is, are we on an equal playing field, or are we not on an equal playing field? And is affirmative action still necessary in society for minority groups? That's the big question that we're still trying to solve, apparently.
when we stop living under the soft bigotry of low expectations. Inherent in your argument is that we have to pander to certain communities based on the color of their skin because they can't do as well as white people. I reject the premise. I think that we should try to say, I don't care about the color of your skin. I care about what you bring to the table. And stop pandering to people based on special criteria, points, and acceptance to college, saying that we're going to make it easier for one group and harder for another group.
I don't think it's pandering, though. I think it's understanding.
Okay, but let me.
Understanding
Do you
the
think that
circumstances and working based on that?
Do you think that we should have black-only dormitories in America?
No, why would I want that?
Okay, well, there's hundreds of schools that have those actually.
What do you mean black only? Like they're not. White people are not allowed in.
No,
at
white
all.
people are not allowed.
White people. Yeah, that's why I said white people
exactly,
are not allowed.
Correct. We have black-only graduation ceremonies across the country.
Well, those are from well, I believe those are most likely like HBCUs, right?
No,
like
the University of Michigan has one.
Has an
Yale
all-black
has
dormitory?
one. Harvard has one. So we're agreeing that is wrong. That is the furthest extension of hyper race obsession. So you could choose one or the other. You can be race obsessed or merit obsessed. We as conservatives decide to be merit obsessed, to build a country based on how hard you work and what you're able to deliver.
Okay.
I get what he's saying. He said there are black only graduations, and I didn't know that was happening. I'm gonna have to look into that. He may be 100% right. However, some of the examples he used was a little wrong. Like if Yale has a black only graduation, there's nothing that the federal government writing into law can do that can change that, because Yale is a private institution in the Ivy League. So that would be their private company having a black only graduation. University of Michigan, on the other hand, I don't know if that's a state school. I think it is. So you can definitely change that. But private companies usually just do what they want anyways. I'm going to say that. He does have a good point. When it comes to colleges or jobs and careers, the number one thing that you should focus on, obviously, is merit, or do you have the standings to be here? Are you qualified to be here? And when you start primarily focusing on race, which I'm unsure if companies are doing today, I would have to look into that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know exactly what companies are doing, but I'm just going to give some practical advice. If you're focusing majority on race, are you necessarily getting the best students that you can get, or are you just trying to look good for a public image? So that's a really good question to ask.
So wait, Here, just I wasn't.
Final
I-
point?
Oh yeah, final point. Sure. Okay. Here, this thing's a little close. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend your wonderful setup here. Yeah. So I guess I'll just restate my point that I don't believe you mentioned like all black dormitories, right? I mean, I don't really comment on that. I mean, I don't know if that's real. To me, that sounds fake, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt here.
It's very real.
Okay. But I just think it's a very irrelevant kind of like aesthetic focused thing. It doesn't really affect the material conditions of like black
But
people.
if you
It
heard
doesn't
there were
really-
white-only dormitories, there'd be marching in the streets, right?
Oh, well, because okay, I get
What's
it.
the
I get it.
difference?
The difference is, like, for example, if you want to go back to segregation, the all-white dormitory was nice as f- and the all-black one was. So if that was brought back, okay, if we were to do an all-white dormitory and an all-black
I'm not recommending it. I think actually
Okay.
segregation is wrong and evil, and we're heading until Donald Trump. We were heading in that direction.
But like, okay, I'll go back to because I let it slip by. But you mentioned that like, in the early years of the Donald Trump presidency, right? That the conditions for the employment and stuff were going up for black people. What I would say is the economy works slow. It works at like a time dilation for when a policy is initially enacted. So what I would probably assume based on what you said to me is that it was the Obama era policies that actually led to that, and not the Trump policies, because stuff like tax cuts
I
for
just
the
love
rich
it.
doesn't really help.
In a year from now,
black
we're going to have
people.
the greatest economy ever. They're going to say it's all Biden. It's all Biden.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen. I personally think the economy is going to shit with what all Elon Musk is doing.
Oh.
But if that was to happen, I mean, I guess my whole worldview. But I'm pretty certain it's not gonna happen.
What about Elon? What Elon's doing bothers you? Do you not want to see the
Okay,
government
that-
efficient?
The government is efficient. He's just firing everybody. Looks like he did to Twitter, bro. Y'all see what happened to Twitter, bro? It's racist as f- now. It's just a Nazi haven. It went from like a pretty accepting place to like what like where like the average blue checkmark is saying Hail Hitler. Like Elon Musk himself has replied to like, he did the Nazi salute. Like, we're not gonna forget about that, are we?
No, he didn't.
What do you mean? Y'all didn't see that clip, bro? Y'all see when he did that?
All right.
Oh, okay.
And by the way,
Yeah,
I just want to
thank you.
thank you for something.
You're welcome.
Well, I want to thank you.
Do I get a portion of like the TikTok?
Twitter actually has been racist. But ironically, the person who said that heinous thing on Twitter, I'm not even going to repeat it, about the mustache guy, was Kanye West. Kanye West said that on Twitter. It was a black man who said that, which is pretty ironic. He said it on Twitter. So to say it's racist, yeah, but it was coming from a black guy. But anyways, let me know what you guys thought about this video. Let me know if you want me to react to anything else. I try to give my purest objective opinion on it as I possibly can. Please make sure you guys go research this information yourself. Don't just blindly follow what anyone tells you. Not even me. I'm researching it. Make sure you form your own opinions. Make sure you fact check everything you hear. My name is LFR JoJo, and I'll see you in the next one.